Runnemede Board of Education meeting is called to order. The Board of Education is in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975 entitled Open Public Meetings Act. The time, date, and location of this meeting was appropriately advertised by notifying in retrospect, as well as posting notices in the Borough Hall, Runnemede Post Office, Marygold School, Alliant Bingham School, Grace Downing School, and the Runnemede Public School District website. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, board members.
Mrs. Dare.
Here.
Mrs. Peavy.
Here.
Mr. Buckheim.
Here.
Ms. Davidson.
Here.
Mr. Lego. Here. Mr. Murray.
Here.
Ms. Panzarella. Ms. Sands.
Here.
Ms. Spalding.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Also present, Superintendent of Schools, Mark Iannucci, Director of Curriculum and Business Administrator, Dr. Sean McCarron, Principal, Bigelow Downing School, Ms. Jade Yezzi, Vice Principal of Old School, Mr. Steve Maloney, Director of Special Education, Ms. Gladys Hubbard, and Supervisor of Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Frank Hines. At this time, I need a motion to approve the board minutes for regular and executive session minutes on May 18th. First, sorry, I look this way. I will make sure I make modifications for you, my friends, like you did this night for us. I'm giving you a second though, okay? Motion made by Chaz, seconded by Maria. Any questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Dare.
Yes.
Ms. Peavy.
Yes.
Mr. Buckheim.
Yes.
Ms. Davidson.
Yes.
Mr. Lego.
Yes.
Mr. Murray.
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella.
Yes.
Ms. Sands.
Yes.
Ms. Spalding.
Yes.
Motion passes.
No presentations at this time.
Correct.
No correspondence at this time.
Correct.
At this time, we are open for public comment on agenda items only. Does anybody have any questions on anything that's on the agenda that is up here for the public? The public is also reminded they should attempt to resolve problems and/or complaints through initial contact with a staff member or members involved therein and the Chief School Administrator, Mr. Iannucci, prior to petitioning the Board of Education. Complaints should only be brought to the board after the appropriate school staff has had a reasonable opportunity to resolve the problem at the employee level. Statements should be limited to topics to be addressed on this published agenda and limited to length in 3 minutes. Does anyone have any public comment? I'll go over the rules for public comment later.
On agenda items
On
only?
agenda items only,
There's another public comment here.
at the end. No public comment on agenda items? Okay, superintendent's report.
For one, good evening to everybody. It's nice to see our first meeting with an actual audience. In 15, 16 months, last, I guess, March of 2020. So it is nice to have you. We do thank you for coming out. The reason we're here at Downing tonight, the last couple of years, we'd like to get around to all 3 buildings in the district, but we weren't sure about graduations and dances and things like that. That's why we put it here for Downing, and we always like to show off the hard work that everyone did last 2 summers ago, Frank? Roughly? Okay, well, yeah, so if you remember what this all looked like in the past, it was drastically different. We're very excited, and I can actually see everybody. Thank you for coming out. We do appreciate it. Just a few things I'd like to go over. District enrollment, we finished the year at 837 students. We have those 11 out-of-district replacements. That number will obviously change next year as the sons leave. Ms. Hubbard, we have a couple students that will transition.
Yeah, we'll be at 3.
Yes. Okay, so thank you for that. Summer programs. Our announcements page, we have our Chromebook program and our summer reading is posted. So we can share that information if anything is up to you. The summer academic program information is always updated throughout the summer. Our ESY and Title I programs begin on July 6th, and they run through August 10th. In the summer rec, we start back up with that, which we're excited about. So we were unable to have that last summer, but our summer rec camp will begin on the 28th of June, and that runs all the way through August 13th from 6:45 a.m. to 6 p.m. Some of the information is on the website. We also roll that as well. The way we're putting this up a little bit differently this year with number of days students are attending, so we can have better idea of staffing and things like that. we are excited to have summer right back. Our Camden County Association activities, those meetings will continue on a bi-weekly basis. I believe starting in July, I have another one tomorrow afternoon, and then we switch it, another one in June, and then we switch over to bi-weekly and county. Personnel, we still have some positions we're approving tonight. We do have some open positions over the next couple of weeks. We'll continue interviews for the middle school as well as some long-term sub positions. The preschool position is still on as well, and Spanish as well. So if you know of anybody looking for, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's a family, friend, who's looking for something.
I'm sorry, what were the positions that you
I
said?
want to say we have middle school at Bolts for math.
Yeah.
We have middle school Spanish. We have preschool, and we have, I believe, 2 alternates.
And that preschool's a special cert, correct?
Preschool,
Special ed preferred.
we prefer to have the K-12 students.
Gotcha. And some long terms?
And some long terms as well, mainly at the elementary level.
Got it.
K-5.
Yep.
What did you say?
5?
Elementary level, K-5.
Oh, I thought you said 5.
I mean,
All right.
okay.
Maybe may get there. All right, my bad, sorry.
Facilities, summer work, and Dr. McCarron provided some information to the board regarding what summer projects are being done. So we have that information. That work, if it hasn't already started, Frank and Company will begin tomorrow. Once staff leaves, and this thing will be getting underway. And again, just like last summer, the previous summers, I'll provide you with an update on how things are going. The group goes off the gym once again, you'll be the first to know. Hopefully, we'll not have that happen. That did happen in the past. Where you were there, you were there. For our 21-22 school year, we have not started planning officially for that. We start planning officially for that once teachers leave tomorrow afternoon. Our intention is to be full-time. As you remember, remote learning is not an option for next year. At the time of this report, we have no finalized criteria, no guidance or reopening protocols or requirements. We have been working on staffing and PD for the next school year, not only for our students, to benefit them, but also for our staff. Like I told you last meeting, it's going to be an adjustment for everybody. Students coming back full-time next year, staff coming back full-time next year, and dealing with the issues that our students are coming back with. So we look at that mental health aspect we're addressing throughout the summer and then again beginning of the fall. And then my last request, if you do know whether we're playing sports in the fall, please request that they get the physical information to us this summer so we don't have, our staff in bad spots come September. The field hockey team's got to start practice, the soccer team, the cross-country team, and Mark can't attend because he hasn't yet. We're also going to blast out information to our families every other week regarding that. All the information is on the website. If you need help with finding locations of where the physical is taken, if you don't have a primary care physician, we can arrange something with the school physician as well as whatever. That's important. We want kids, we're excited getting those fall sports back in order, so we'll make sure kids are going to participate. And the last thing I have for you is thank you to the board members who attended last night. We had our first nighttime graduation outside over at Triton High School. I want to thank them. I want to thank all our staff members who organized that. You never know it was ever held outside because there was people that were there who watched it. It was really a nice ceremony, a nice weather event, and the kids had a beautiful time with the dance that we were going to have over the Rolls Gym afterwards. It was funny at the end, but we won't worry about that.
What was the theme this year for 8th grade dance?
Yes, they did like Neverland.
Yeah, it wasn't big.
It was beautiful. You'll have to look on,
There were some pictures.
on Facebook on our PTA website.
It wasn't as elaborate as it had been in the past, but they were trying to shift the gears on Sunday morning and what they were getting inside.
So they went from outside to inside Sunday morning, and they still pulled off like an amazing. It was amazing. Yeah. Well,
That's all I have to be. Congratulations to you, great students. We wish them the best. That's all I have.
Any questions for Mr. Iannucci? Just me? Okay, I have a few. Fall sports.
Yep.
Girls soccer,
Girls soccer.
boys soccer,
Boys soccer.
cross country,
Cross country.
and field hockey. Okay.
Cross country, field hockey.
Soccer, girl. I'm just, Can I make a recommendation? I know we blasted out, but you know, it's summertime and if I'm at the beach, I'm not checking my email for your blast. Can we put it on Facebook too?
Sure.
Like every other year, because that stays there, you know what I mean? And just, I wrote down some notes, so I just want to clarify the notes about 21-22 school year. We don't have any guidance from government yet. It's supposed to come out in June. It's not here yet, correct? Okay. So we do know that there's no remote as of right now. Okay. Our official planning will begin, your team and everyone will begin later this week.
We
Teachers,
started already, but tomorrow we'll get the real.
teachers' last day is tomorrow.
Teachers last.
Today was the kids, right?
Yes.
And then, but correct me if I'm wrong, our plan is to go back to what the school looked like in 1920? 1819.
Yes.
Well, right now,
Yes.
today.
There's been no official guidance from 2020.
Not yet. It's supposed to come in June. I'm assuming,
Correct.
I'm assuming it's going to come after graduation.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Some people have, some important people have people graduating.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? So everything that I wrote down was correct, this is what I'm asking you. Any other questions for Ms. Franucci? No? Okay, Dr. McCarron, you're up.
Okay, so for the business office, we are officially closing out the 2020-2021 school year. We're setting up our audit, which will be done at the end of August this year, so we're scheduling our auditors to come back in person to do their audit, which is usually takes a week. Even though it's done in August, you know you won't hear anything until December, as they usually then wait for other reports to be released for them to do. Ms. Councilwoman Kelly had asked a question regarding funding, so I thought I would go over that in my business administrator report and kind of explain, because it can be slightly confusing with the funding that's been received in terms of, because there's ESSER 1, there's CARES, there's ESSER 2, and then there's the American Rescue Plan funding as well. Yes.
Can you explain what ESSER means?
Sure. I can look up the acronym for you.
Well, no, you don't have to give me the exact acronym, but could you let, just for the public?
So with COVID and with everything that was taking place, the federal government provided funding to support school districts in implementing what the requirements were to address COVID, to address remote learning, and to address the needs within a school district, so that way we would be able to reopen. So it put us in a very good position to do facilities upgrades. It put us in a good position to get Chromebooks for students and get them in hands. It put us in a good position to ensure the fact that families that might not have had Wi-Fi were able to connect to Wi-Fi in those situations as well. So that's what that funding was, the purpose of that funding was for.
Elementary and secondary school emergency.
Thank you, that's not what I meant, that's not what I meant, though. What I meant was to make sure that the public knew that it
Sure.
was.
But I'm trying to.
I know. Sorry, I didn't want to. I'm sorry.
There we go. Okay, so the first set of ESSER round funding that we received, which was the initial CARES funding, was $152,000. Of that $152,000, $22,000 had to go to our non-public school district, which for Runnemede would be St. Teresa's. So anytime we talk non-public, it's always St. Teresa's, because it's always the home school that provides that funding. So of that funding, $46,000 was spent on instructional supplies, and that was items that we needed for remote learning, technology, different resources that we had to provide to teachers and students. $106,000, the remaining balance of that, was for support supplies, which would be items used for cleaning facilities, sanitizing based upon code that we were told that we had to clean to for COVID, and making sure that our facilities were up to par when it came to what the requirements were to have staff on site. That was the first round of funding. That funding expires this September. So all of that funding had to be spent by this upcoming September, and we just actually finished spending that last amount of that. ESSER 2 funding, the second round of ESSER funding, was a total of $608,651. The deadline to spend that funding is September of 2022. So not this September, but next September. And all of this money is completely separate from your general budget in terms of the money that's coming in. So while they give you timelines that you can start spending the money, many times, like the most recent money, the American Rescue Plan funding, we were able to start spending in May. The grant hasn't even been approved yet for us, and we didn't receive the grant until the first week in June. So while they say things like school districts can start spending the money in May, we can't spend anything unless the grant's been approved by the County Office of Education, the Office of Grants Management, and the state did not add on extra people to approve these grants. So there were some grants that I pushed through, and I'd be calling 4 months later to Trenton going, hey, what's up, how's it going? And they would give you the explanation of, well, right now, I'm calling them in April, and they're doing grants that were submitted back in December. So they'll tell you that they're 4 months out. So that's where difficulties happen. For the ESSER II funding, and with all of these fundings, they tell you a portion has to be spent on this, a percent has to be spent on that. So for the ESSER II funding, one of the requirements, the general funding was $529,600. The district is planning on using that money for replacement of boilers at Falls, because that's a larger size project and that would be the cost. A part of that funding is making sure that your facilities are updated with air, ventilation, and HVAC pieces that are going to ensure the fact that the buildings are running well, and the fact that you're able to control the temperatures in classrooms, and that the humidity is at a certain level, because when it isn't there, and we had this issue last summer, where we were trying to bring in so much fresh air that it then created mold in certain rooms that were perfectly fine prior to us trying to implement that guidance. So it's important that we are aware of everything that's going on and that we keep our facilities updated. A percentage of that had to go towards learning acceleration. So that was $33,991. That's going to be going towards tutoring, enrichment, and character education. The other piece is $45,000 towards mental health. Right now we have that going towards social emotional learning training for staff and implementation within the district. The other idea that we've discussed is also bringing in a part-time counselor for supporting students as we integrate students back into the classrooms and try to get things back to what we consider normal. That's the second ESSER fund, ESSER II. The final one is the American Rescue Plan. That was the federal funding, $1.189 million. The deadline for that spending is September of 2023. 20% of that has to go towards what I call Mr. Iannucci's favorite thing, learning loss, learning gaps, we like to say, instead of learning loss, because it's not loss. So that's $237,800. That funding will be focused on extended school day and student remediation programs to support student learning. And the other thing to consider is when we say it has to be spent by September of 2023, you're spending that you can spend that over the course of 2 years in order to implement that. Something that you're not going to see us do often is try to add staffing. Because one of the issues that you have when you add staffing with one-time money is that once that one-time money is gone, so is the staff member. So you want to make sure that you're empowering your current staff members with the resources and strategies they can use, also offering those extended programs and opportunities to provide students with what they need. The other 80% is for health and safety, and that would be $951,000. One thing we're looking at is we're looking at our entire HVAC unit and how things are running in all 3 of the buildings. The other thing that we don't have fully set up at this point, we've just started, is making sure that there's controllers on all of our HVAC units so we're able to control things throughout the district on a moment's notice, or we get notifications if one room's not working, or if the temperature is at a certain level, or the humidity is somewhere else. Any questions on that? Because that was a lot of numbers. So one of the reasons why I said a part-time position is a part-time position is a lot more sustainable than a full-time position, because it's a much smaller amount, there's not benefits included, and that would be something that we would probably be able to sustain as a district. However, in addition to that, we are also adding additional positions within the district. Like through our preschool grant, we're doing a community parent involvement specialist, which is starting in July. And that's a social worker who's going to be working with families throughout the district, because part of that person's job is transitioning students between Vols to Bingham and Downing and making sure that we have more family involvement in that sense. So we do have other resources that we're also utilizing. So when I say part-time positions, that's why it's a part-time position and not a full-time position for that. Any other questions?
I have one.
Go for it.
And I may be ignorant of this fact, but you said in the ESSER 2 funding that it was over 529,000, and then we were just thinking about the controls. Frank, this might be like for you. So I added those two numbers up and it would be $1,480,860.
So
Is that
that's-
because our boilers are so, is that like what it would cost? I have no idea. Because they're so old and because we need that? Is that like,
So we're working with Garrison right now to get a price on how much it's gonna cost to do it.
okay. So that's just one thing we definitely want to do, Dr. Karen, is put some controls and some more updates and upgrades.
So the boilers would fall under ESSER 2 funding, and then the controls would fall under the American.
Because we definitely have an additional year to
Correct,
use
yes.
that. Okay. I just saw boilers 2 times and it seems like a lot of money, but again, I have no idea. Dennis, maybe you could help. I have no idea what they would cost. Just wondering.
We're hoping it costs less, at which point we'd be able to put that funding to other
Other
areas.
stuff. Okay.
And I will say that we have been quoted much higher sometimes on the initial
Of course.
than what it actually comes in at. But for right now, and what I will say with all these grants, is that these grants were coming out back to back to back. And they want them submitted within like a 2 weeks time period. So oftentimes we do very broad things that we then submit to get the approval so we can at least start using the money. And then if something comes in less, we're able to put that money towards other areas.
Thank you.
Sure, any other questions for that piece? Okay, in terms of curriculum and instruction, we did finalize the two testing sessions that we had to do, which was the dynamic learning map, which is for our special education students. Also, our access testing is completed and finalized, which is for our ELL students. Those were 2 of the testings that they did not tell us we could waive this year, and that we were still required to implement. We have pushed out information regarding summer programming. Mr. Iannucci mentioned that in his report. The one thing I will say is that the only program we have going on site this summer, and it's just for this summer, is our extended school year program, and then we also have our summer camp. We do have our Chromebook camp, which is asynchronous, meaning it is not live sessions, but then we also have a virtual live tutoring program that we set up, where teachers will be live tutoring small groups of students at scheduled times that are arranged with families. So while we don't have our Title I program like we have in prior summers, we're hoping to go back to that in future years. This summer, to accommodate that, we do have our live tutoring with teachers, and that information is also a part of that packet that went out to families for whatever grade their child is going into. In addition, we have a ton of great programs that we utilize throughout the school year. Families have access to all of those programs over the summer months. Students will have their Chromebooks over the summer months. Those families that did not have wireless internet will continue to receive wireless internet over the summer months, so they would have those resources available to them. Councilwoman Kelly brought up 2 questions that fall under curriculum that I was going to address. So the first thing is, she had a question regarding something that was put out regarding the LGBTQ inclusive curriculum that the state discussed as far as being implemented within schools. So the Department of Education introduced an LGBTQ inclusive curriculum that they expect all schools to address within their curriculum. As a school district, the Runnemede School District believes that we are already addressing this through our inclusive curriculum. What does an inclusive curriculum mean, is then the question, because sometimes when people hear this, they're thinking LGBTQ is being taught specifically in isolation in what we're doing, and that is not the situation or the case. What an inclusive curriculum means is that the goal of inclusive curriculum is that all students see themselves, that they see others, and that they have access to a diverse group of individuals in their educational experiences. So that might mean people who are highlighted within history. It might be a character in a story. It might talk about different family dynamics where, so-and-so's 2 moms, are in a story. It's not going specifically into what that is, but it's showing students that they can see themselves in everything that they're learning and everything that they're doing. And at the elementary, middle school level, that's how it's intertwined. So when we talk about scientists, or we talk about different individuals who we're highlighting within our programs, it's ensuring the fact that we're highlighting people from all aspects and showing students that area. This is addressed through novels, stories, scientists, historical figures who represent members of the LGBTQ community. So I'm not sure if that answered the question you were asking, Ms. Kelly.
I think it does. If you said that there are guidelines that the state gave you, and these are the guidelines that you're following?
Yes, and there's policies that the state gave us as well. We've adopted them several years ago.
Correct. So we're not teaching these things in isolation, but we're able to show the state that these aspects are addressed through our reading series. They're addressed through our history textbook. They're addressed in novels that students might be reading within their classrooms. The same thing is true as also with like the Holocaust. So we have our social studies curriculum, but then we need to also show within our curriculum how the Holocaust is addressed. The state came out last year saying that the districts had to have a dance and theater curriculum. We don't have dance and theater classes. They didn't care. They still wanted a curriculum on file from every school district showing that there was a curriculum in place. So sometimes it depends on the behind the scenes at the state level as far as things that get approved, and then as a district, that's our requirement to show that we're addressing it. And then if we're given additional guidance or we're told to modify it to meet different needs, then we make those decisions at that time.
So the mandate came down not for a specific gender equity class, but an inclusive curriculum covering this gender equity, but not a specific class. You don't have to have a specific class.
But they want you to be able to show in your programs that you discuss equity. And you discuss equity differences and the fact that there are differences and there are different races. And you know, one of the other things that when I speak to people about this, that I always say is too, these things students aren't just being given something cold.
Right.
They're being given something and then being taught it with a teacher and being walked through topics and having discussions. And you know, when you talk about the civil rights movement, and when you know, 6th grade, we do, you know, Watson's Go to Birmingham, where it talks about a family going from Flint, Michigan to Birmingham, Alabama. And what the differences were for that family from where they lived in Flint, Michigan to what they experienced going to Birmingham, Alabama. And I can tell you as a language arts teacher, one of the things that I would always say is like, you have to preface those novels with students to say like, this was a different time period. Like, what we're seeing in this novel isn't acceptable. And as a teacher, if there's parts of this novel I feel you can't handle as a class, I might skip over a sentence or two because I don't know if you can handle it. And then when I would say that to them, then they would be able to handle it. It's like the reverse psychology. But they have those conversations with their teachers and they're learning it from someone who is prepared and ready to have those discussions.
So then the theory about teaching gender equity and race equity from the home, you're making the assumption that most of the children are getting this from their homes and then coming here for an additional explanation. Is that correct? Is that what you're assuming?
Well,
We don't like to assume.
I'm not going to assume that. What I'm going to assume is that students will see equity throughout the curriculum. Students are going to see that there's different
From
perspectives.
first grade on.
Correct, that there's different perspectives.
You know,
Kindergarten, you have a kindergarten teacher behind it. So from kindergarten, preschool on, you know, they're going to have those conversations. But at the same time, like, as a school district, we can't control, that's a family's prerogative what they want to teach at home. And in a school district, what I would say to a parent is you have the right to teach your child whatever you believe at home. But in school, some of those beliefs you might not be able to share because it might not be acceptable within the class because we're going to accept everyone in the class and we're going to talk about the importance of acceptance. But what you do outside of school, that's your decision and that's your choice. So I wouldn't assume anything in terms of what takes place at home, but I can tell you that that's how, as a district, we've implemented this because we felt like it didn't take away what was being taught at home, but it also still addressed what we were required to do as a school within that.
and you've been doing this for a number of years.
Yes, we adopted policies in about 3 school years ago that were mandated from the state.
And even
We always
before-
address every mandate, we always adopt every mandated policy from the state. So when the state said this a few years back, we absolutely put everything in place to protect.
And when I read about the mandate that came down in January, I was a little concerned because I thought to myself, why all of a sudden is the governor making this a mandate? When I do believe that you were teaching this over a period of years, and now it's a mandate, so now everybody has to teach it. Are you familiar with the new situation that's going on about the race theory, critical?
So that was the next thing I was gonna bring up, because you brought that up.
Because
So
I've
one
been
thing-
looking a little research on that.
So the one thing I'm gonna say about,
Critical race theory?
well, everything that we're discussing right now in terms of LGBTQ inclusive curriculum, critical race theory, a lot of these are extremely politically driven
Absolutely.
topics.
Absolutely.
A lot of these things are also already addressed within our curriculum. So for me, I'm a school educator, you know, I'm a career educator. I'm not necessarily a politically driven individual for education. And there's things that we have to do as a public school district based on those pushes from the state and from politics. So what I put together was, the other question came up regarding critical race theory, which has been in the news lately, in terms of how that's addressed within schools. So as a school district, this already has been addressed within our history and ELA curriculum. It has been. Each of our schools also provide lessons on social and emotional learning for all students as individuals and promotes dignity and respect for all people. When teachers are working with their classes within these topics, something that I always stress to parents is that students aren't being taught these topics in isolation, as we said with LGBTQ, but they're being guided by their teachers through discussions and conversations. So when we talk about critical race theory, another way of looking at that though, is looking at it as teaching history, racial disparities over time, and I gave you that example of like Watson's Go to Birmingham, where a family goes from one part of the country to another. Or even inequalities that you might say, you see inequalities everywhere that you live. There's inequalities in different professions, there's inequalities in different neighborhoods, there's inequalities from schools to schools. So those are things that are already being discussed and addressed. However, oftentimes, unfortunately, it comes up as hot topics when it's not something that is really an issue at the school level. So,
This came up to me by a person who is politically connected in the Republican Party. And they asked me if I could answer what my thinking was on this. So I did some research. And it seems that this is all about getting the congressional seats back that the Republicans lost 4 years ago. It's all about that. And Bannon put on his podcast that the way to get the country back is through the school boards. I just want to know if you're being attacked in any way. Is this being addressed to you in any way politically?
So we pride ourselves on being a Board of Education who is here for our students and our staff, and we are not politically driven at all. We don't have personal agendas, so we don't really involve politics in our decision making. You know, we listen to the guidance and the mandates, of course, because we are a public entity, but as far as Democrat, Republican, critical race theory, like we follow what is told, and I think we do a darn good job of it, but I don't know like where we're going with this. I'm actually uncomfortable with this topic because we're just still on the director of curriculums. What Dr. McCarron was trying to do was answer the questions publicly and out loud that you had, but I feel as though he's done that.
Yes, well, absolutely.
So I would like to move on.
I just want you to know that it's very well funded. The movement is very well funded. The Heritage Foundation is behind it 100%. So you have a lot of politicization, and it's not about the kids.
But I think
It's all about putting people in those congressional seats. That's what it's all about.
and that has nothing to do right now in front of me, so
I
we're
know.
going to move on.
I know, and I hope it never has to come to that.
Not with this board at all. Thank you. Dr. McCarron?
that's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. McCarron. You
Sure thing.
answered all my questions. Just one more question.
Could you wait, I'm sorry.
Oh.
We need to move forward. Would you ask
Okay.
that question in public comments, please?
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. McCarron? Any questions on the principal's reports, nurses' reports, building and grounds report, special education reports? Any questions there? No? Any reports from New Jersey School Board, Camden County Ed Services Commission, or anything else?
New Jersey School Boards Association, please check your emails because there's a lot of learning opportunities
Yeah.
that take place during the day via webcast and podcast. So I would just recommend that you do that because there's so much out there that you can do. I know a lot of us have received our certification, so you can keep going and keep learning, keep getting your credits. So I would encourage you to keep doing that. But I don't have a specific report, but just please, for your own education, keep looking at your emails.
Also, all board members have been registered for the fall conference, which will be virtual again, so that everyone's been registered and information will be forthcoming.
Do you have the date? Well, I'll look it up then.
It's the end of October.
End of October, like usual, right, like that last week or the third week there. Okay. Anything from Camden County Ed Services?
No, the status quo, because of the COVID.
Yes.
It's not been very active this year, so at this time, no. I did have to step down as treasurer.
Yes.
Because I'm not running again for the board, you have to be more member here. So I stepped down, I'll continue going to the
Absolutely, yeah.
through December.
And then we will make sure that we have someone there for you. Okay. Anyone else?
Planning and zoning, 16 units going.
Planning and zoning, 16 units going on East Clemens Bridge Road.
Right next to residential.
Yes, the old spaghetti house.
Yes.
Yes, I did that,
16 units.
16 apartments?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Market rate.
Thank you, Maria, for reminding me of that. Anything else before we can move on to new business? No? All right, then. You ready? All right. So, we have nothing this month for property and transportation. Under personnel, I need a motion to approve items numbers 1 through 15.
I'd like to make a motion to approve numbers 1 through 15 under personnel.
Motion made by Naomi, second by Dennis. Any questions? Roll call.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beebe?
Yes.
Mr. Buckheim?
Yes.
Ms. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Lego?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella? Ms. Samms? Ms. Spalding?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under finance, we need a motion to approve, this is the big one, items numbers 1 through 20.
No. Yeah.
Motion made by Chaz, second by Patty. Any questions?
I have one question.
Yes.
The number 15,
15.
number 15, is this an increase from the previous years or is this a steady cash, petty cash? Is that
Annual renewal.
increased?
Annual renewal.
Okay, thank you.
That's for auditing purposes also. So like every year we have to show them like, the board approved this and the board approved that, and then we're aware.
Any other questions? All right, roll call.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beebe?
Yes.
Mr. Buckheim?
Yes.
Ms. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Lego?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella? Ms. Samms? Ms. Spalding?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under curriculum, I need a motion for number 1. That was an addendum.
Under that motion for.
Motion made by Angel, second by Patty. Any questions? Roll call.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beebe?
Yes.
Mr. Buckheim?
Yes.
Ms. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Lego?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Ms. Panzarella?
Yes.
Ms. Samms?
Yes.
Ms. Spalding?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Policy and public relations, I need a motion to approve items numbers 1 through 4. Motion made by Maria,
I'll second.
second by Dennis. Questions? Roll call.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beebe?
Yes.
Mr. Buckheim?
Yes.
Ms. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Lego?
Yes.
Mr. Murray? Ms. Panzarella?
Yes.
Ms. Samms?
Yes.
Ms. Spalding?
Yes.
Motion passes.
At this time, we are going to open up for recognition. This is our time for public comments for citizens and staff on non-agenda items. The public is reminded that they should attempt to resolve problems and or complaints through initial contact with the staff member or members involved therein, if that pertains, and the chief school administrator prior to petitioning the Board of Education. Complaints should only be brought to the board after the appropriate staff has a reasonable opportunity to resolve the problem at the employee level. Statements should be limited to length in 3 minutes. The public is reminded that all public complaints against a district employee must be made through a specific grievance process. A description of this process may be found in Board of Ed Policy File Code 0167. This policy is available upon request in the Office of the Board Secretary. Any individual naming an employee in a complaint before the Board of Education without the employee's permission could be cited for violating that employee's civil and contractual rights. So if you have a public comment, could you please, in an orderly fashion, hold on, raise your hand, state your name and address before your 3 minutes begin, please, for the board. Yes.
My name is Heather Farrell. I live in Runnemede. I live on Shepherd Ave, right down the street from the big building.
Yes. Hi, Heather.
Hello. Okay, I prepared a speech. That's okay?
Sure.
3 minutes to time myself. And brief
Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay.
Take your time.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I wanted to start off by thanking Mr. Anici for the mask mandates on the kids for this last week of school. I have 3 kids. 2 are in the public school system. One is a sophomore at Triton, the other is a preschooler at Holtz. She may be going to Bingham in September. I wanted to start with, okay, so I printed out a bunch of stuff. I really intended on having packets for everybody, but as I started to print, there was like 700 papers coming out of my thing. So I just have a link. I have some packets for everybody to take home for information on masks. So I wanted to start on what I think is most important. The World Health Organization lists the proper guidelines for mask wearing pertaining to children. If the guidelines, these specific guidelines are not followed, it omits the efficacy of the masks. They don't work. Number 1, this is World Health Organization put this out. Number 1 is avoid touching the mask while wearing it. If the mask is accidentally touched, perform hand hygiene. This is not happening. We know everybody's touching their mask all day. They're not washing their hands immediately afterwards. A school nurse testified in the Senate last week that school-age students are not concerned with self-pay safety of their masks. They don't care. Neither are most of us. I feel like we all probably pull masks out from under our car seats. You know. So anyway, number two guideline is to replace the mask as soon as it becomes damp with a new, clean, dry mask, and then perform hand hygiene. This should not happen almost immediately if you're wearing a cloth-based mask, just from your breath, let alone the sweat coming from the kids when they come in from outside, food particles from when they eat, whatever is coming out of their noses that gets stuck in their masks. My daughter actually came home and said, some kids, she's 5, some children wear their masks right, some eat them. That's literally what she said. Some kids eat their masks. Okay, these guidelines are not realistic. They're not, they shouldn't be expected of the teachers or anyone. It's just unrealistic to be washing hands constantly and just keeping up with this. Research shows that a moist mask is a breeding ground for antibiotic-resistant bacteria. There are countless reports of migraines, nosebleeds, CO2 infections. Improper mask use can cause cross-contamination. Children are suffering from rashes, sores behind their ears, and doctors are reporting increased strep throat cases. But what I see most in my home and what brought me here tonight is that the numerous mental health issues that this is creating across the board on all of our children. So many of us have watched the lights dim in our children this year. Children need to see facial expressions in order to learn how to evaluate situations, learn languages, and connect with each other. How is this practice fair for anyone, let alone our IEP students, special needs students, students who need help with speech, who need to be able to see people's mouths when they talk every day? Masking children is numbing their interaction. How are they to know if their teacher's pleased with their behavior or if a friend is upset with them if they cannot read facial expressions? Our children have a 99.9% recovery rate if they are infected with this virus. Most children have mild symptoms or are asymptomatic. Dr. Fauci and the World Health Organization both stated that transmission rarely occurs from asymptomatic people. The masks are not what is stopping the spread, and our school-age children are the least likely to spread this virus, bottom line. I'd like to say, the reason that I asked you for your personal opinion on this mandate was because I think it's really important for the community to know where you stand with this. This is a really, really big deal for a lot of us. I feel like the board is probably somewhat supportive of this, I don't really know, but I hope so. I just want to make it clear that we are not going to stand for what we all know is coming, which may be an experimental vaccine being our child's only ticket to a mask-free education in the public school system. And I will pull my children, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I will 100% pull my children from school if masks are mandated, or if a mandated vaccine or a COVID-19 vaccine is required for my child to remove her mask, or all three of them. So my question to everybody is just that, what can you do to help us be able to express that we can have our choice, make the choices for our children ourselves, and not be told, by the governor, let's do it, that's it. Yeah.
So, we are a public entity, public school. We, despite our personal feelings as parents, grandparents, and things, we did follow what the governor said, and our administrators reached out to us as soon as it became optional, and like you said, made it optional. We didn't, unfortunately, we don't have any guidance yet, and we just want to let you know that we hear you, we appreciate you, we thank you for coming out and advocating for your children, despite what other people or other districts say. Like, we're all about that. That's what I do as a parent and a grandparent, so I know it takes a lot of guts to do what you're doing, and we all appreciate you. That's first and foremost. We're all here for the safety and advocacy for children. Every single person sitting here. I can guarantee you that. You don't know me, but I personally guarantee you that. So we will start moving forward with this literally tomorrow afternoon. I cannot guarantee anything. We cannot guarantee anything at this time. However, like Mr. Iannucci said previously, it is our goal to move forward with what we consider a normal school year next year. So I need you to be diligent, like I know you are, and stay on top of the mandates and things that are coming out. We meet again on July 20th and again on August 17th. We'll be staying up, I promise you, on everything that's said, everything that's done. And it really will not be our decision until the governor, which has happened last year in the summer, makes it our decision. Until now, what we're doing, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're doing is we're moving forward to what we consider the normal school year. Normal hours, normal routine, normal activities, until we're told otherwise. We are literally going to start that tomorrow at noon.
Thank you.
That's really, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's how we, that's like.
I really do. I'm super grateful for you. I know, after, there was a lot going on that night when we were, when all these schools were going out, people were dropping mandates, and I just do, we both, I think, feel that we have a good support system in Runnemede. There's a lot of groups forming in the state of New Jersey. There's a lot of women who want to make a lot of noise. There's a lot of women that want to come here tonight and be crazy, and we just don't feel like that's Runnemede. That's not what this is not necessary. We push something over.
But we would never tell you not to, I personally, we would never tell you not to advocate for what you think.
We just
right
felt
for
like
children.
what we're doing is fine. We're communicating well. We're not having any issues, I don't feel like.
And we have an open line. I know the principals, and I know that the superintendent and us. I mean, we all have an open line of communication. We want what's best too. We just have we have policies and mandates, like you heard previously, that we have to follow. But that is our goal. That is 100% true. That is what we're doing. That is why I wrote it down and repeated and asked the question earlier today to make sure that we were all on the same page. Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, hold on 1 second. Mrs. Kelly.
Eleanor Kelly, 161 Forest Avenue. Is there a gender-neutral bathroom in our schools, in our district?
it's not general neutral per se, if a student, let me find my notes.
I know at Trenton, they use the nurse's office.
Oh, that's not true, we have a gender neutral bathroom. It's in mine, it's right in my
Oh, you do have a gender
We don't
neutral.
have-
Correct, we do.
So do we have it here?
We don't have that, I mean, we're not the size of,
Right.
the high school, it's in all three of our buildings, so if a student is not comfortable with using a bathroom, there's accommodations made. The nurse's office, could be the staff, the unisex bathroom, the staff bathroom, or things like that. We had that happen this year, but we don't have specifically a transgender bathroom.
Okay, thank you.
Because our building is smaller, but they definitely accommodate.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Well, my name is Roberta Lyle, and I live on Hill Ave in Runnemede. I actually know a lot of you because, you know, I'm so-and-so's mom, pick one of 9 kids, and you'll come across me. And really, I'm not saying exactly the same thing as Heather said, but a lot of it has to deal with the exact same thing. I had 5 kids, no, 4, sorry, homeschooling this past year, or remote, until we could go in. And yeah, it was difficult. The teachers were awesome, they were wonderful. But the emotional aspect that I saw with my kids was heartbreaking. I don't even know how else to explain it. It was more than just a light that just went out. I have one that just doesn't even want to be bothered anymore. Wants nothing to do with school. I have another one that just wants to do what she has to do, and that's it. That hurts my heart because I've had my 4 older ones who did well. Most of you guys know them. And it is upsetting to me to see that they just aren't enjoying life. They're kids. They can't see their friends' faces. They can't see, you can't hear them right. Yes, my 4-year-old, he says it's just stupid. And I had a whole big thing that I was going to say that she wanted to miss saying it. But my biggest thing is that as your kids are yours, these kids are mine. I work really hard making each and every one of them. No one knows them better than me, just like no one knows your kids better than you guys, right? I want to be able to make the choices for my kid, for all my kids, basically. I don't want my choices being taken away from me, and that's what it feels like. It feels like, and I know it's not you guys per se, I know that, but it feels like my kids' freedoms, my kids' rights, they're being taken away, and then it's just like, oh well, they're kids, they can't advocate for themselves. Well, I'm not accepting that. These kids are mine, they're my responsibility, they're mine to take care of. I want my choice given back to me. As far as a mask is concerned, that is a medical experiment. Yes, that's what it is. These kids are not at risk. They're not these super spreaders who are now made to feel like they are just walking diseases. I want the choice on if they're going to get a vaccine or not, because it is not approved. We don't know the long-term effects. And like I said, I put the time in to make them. I'm not about to let anybody just put whatever they want into their bodies. I'm not comfortable with it. Or on their bodies, exactly. And with that, I'm a little nervous for next year. I mean, I'm trying to go into it with a positive outlook and go, okay, we're going to be good. Some people have been starting the hashtag 2019 or bust. And I really, really do hope that we are going to start next school year as, normal, you can say, or as close to what it was. I really do hope so, because if these mandates are put on them with a mask or mandatory vaccine, or if you don't have a vaccine and you have to wear a mask and be segregated, I'm going to pull my kids. I don't want to do that. I love this school district. I do. I've had, all 9 of my kids will be going through here. That's crazy. And we stay here because we love this district. In fact, I calm a lot of moms down, actually. I was like, whoa, don't go in blazing. I know the people on the board, they're really actually nice people. They do love these kids, just like we do. You know, I know you guys know it's important, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you all. But I really hope you hear us in saying that we're their parents. We just want to be their parents. But with that comes the choices and the responsibility to make sure that they are able to live healthy and safely. And this past year has done neither one of those things.
Thank you. We hear you loud and clear. Thank you. Any other public comment at this time?
Hey, Jenny Brown, 588 Sherrington. My son is coming back into the district next year. I just want to say that, you know, I'm not opposed to what these ladies are saying, but I'm in support of the board and whatever they decide is in the best interest of our children. Yes, we can feel like our freedoms are being taken away, but I am more for the betterment of society as a whole. The minute the vaccinations were available, I had my teenagers vaccinated. They can all go to school. They can hug their grandparents without worrying about transmitting it to them. And if the school decides that masks are, you know, required, okay, we'll deal with it. But I just want you to know you do have support in that whatever you feel is safe for our children. You know, I personally feel like everyone in society should be together for the betterment of other people. So if there's people in our society that need me to be vaccinated so that I can be safely with them, and I feel bad for our teachers because they don't really have a choice. If our children have a choice, then our teachers, they can't, if the teachers don't get vaccinated, then the children that are vaccinated could bring more to them. But our teachers, most of them were unselfish and got vaccinated in order to be safe being with the children. So that's just all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown, and welcome back. You only had a 1-year hiatus, two-year hiatus from the Runnemede School District, so
No, it was only one, wasn't it?
you're starting all over
Just this
again.
year.
Welcome back.
Oh yeah, well it was only one.
It's only one.
That's what I thought. Yes,
He's back in pre-K next year.
yes, that's amazing. Mrs. Wilson? Jim?
Mrs. Wilson, 201 Schubert Avenue. I have several hats here. I work here. I'm on the school board of trade. I have grandchildren here. I have grandchildren in other school districts. And what I would like to say about this school district is that we were way ahead of other school districts in what we allowed our kids to do. I have grandchildren that went 2 days a week, never changed, needed help. They were in school 2 days a week. Their extra help had to be remote. It couldn't be an hour after school when my daughter offered to help bring them in. Then it was just all over the place. I know my grandson really, you know, had a problem. But here, I believe that our board, with the mandates that were passed, slowly moved in the directions that they had to move to make it best for our students. And I know that mask was a big thing. If anybody knows me, it was a big thing for me. I have a lot of problems and that type of thing. And I was like kind of a real joke once in a while. But they had to do what the mandates were. They have to follow that. And as soon as they can make the change that they can make, I feel they moved forward and did the best for our students. I mean, my grandchildren here, I had some that did well, like you said, and some that it was hard. We have a preschooler who's online, and you know, the teacher's trying to talk, and you know, he's just happy when she's done reading her story. Can I get off now? You know what I mean? Like it just, but you know, it's the best they could do with what they were handed down to do. And I just feel they're so supportive of our students and always have made the best choices that we have to move forward, and I know they're going to move forward the best for our kids. And I feel really confident with that. So I feel that they need to know that you know, we're very happy in what they did this year. I mean, it was a tough lot of decisions.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. Any other public comment?
I have two things. And you know, I probably should have said this to you so you could announce it. Number one, the PTA said they were going to post it, and I don't go on Facebook enough. Thank you, Mr. Bailey, for helping with decorations.
They did post at the PTA.
And then publicly announced to support all the businesses that
They posted those. So, yeah.
you announce it to people who aren't on Facebook.
Sure. Give me 30 seconds.
You would just say it.
So I'll just say what happened. Mr. Peely isn't here today, he had a prior engagement, but we received an email Sunday morning from the PTA 8th grade parents who were very upset, and I happened to be I took a little bit morning nap, and when I got up, I saw it, and I walked up, and Mr. Peely was behind me. We were on the phone. At the time, Mr. Iannucci texted, the admin made the decision to move into the gym, and not only did he make the decision, but he also helped them bring all of their supplies outside from the inside. And then there was, obviously, we couldn't do anything without like some local businesses. So, especially with this last year, Carosello's, Philly Diner, Larry's Deli, Marino's, Primo's, Pat's, and El Tequila are the businesses that helped our students in 8th grade have a delicious dinner dance last night. And it was a night in Neverland, Peter Pan's, I think. And yes?
I have a question. Jess Marchese. I'm actually from Gloucester Township, but I'm here for support. But I love Runnemede too, clearly. So, question for you. If a child, if a student comes to school and has a doctor's note saying that they are unable to wear the mask, are you willing to look into that? And
We're always, that's always required. And we had that issue pop up, you know, we have autistic population in our MD room that, with difficulty, and our teachers work extremely hard with that, with our students to keep the mask on.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So it wouldn't be, because obviously there's no remote option, but it wouldn't be then like a homebound instruction route that you would have to take with the child?
No.
Okay. Just curious. I'm a teacher as well in a totally different county, and so I was just curious because there was talk about that happening come September, but I'm just here to hear what's going on.
Yeah, no, and again, that'll be something that the admin team addresses this summer and thinks about as well.
Great.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, so we do have an executive session scheduled for this evening, so I need a motion to go into executive session, please. Motion made by Patty. Seconded by Naomi. Whereas the Senator Byron M. Mayor Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-12, requires all meetings of the Runnemede School District Board of Education to be held in public. NJSA 10:4-12B sets forth 9 types of matters that may lawfully be discussed in executive session without the public being permitted to attend. And whereas the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education has deemed it necessary to go into closed session to discuss certain matters which are exempted from the public, and whereas the 9 exceptions of the public meeting set forth in NJSA 10:4-12B are listed below, and next to each exception is a box, which with the number of issues we privately discussed that fall within the exception shall be written. And after each exception is a space for additional information that will disclose as much information as possible about the decision without undermining the purpose of the exemption shall be written. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Runnemede School District Board of Education will go into closed session for the following reasons as outlined in NJSA 10:4-12B. Any matter involving the employment, appointment, termination of employment, terms and conditions of employment, evaluation of the performance, promotion, or disciplining of any specific prospective public officer or employee, or current public officer or employee, employed or appointed by the public body, unless all individual employees or appointees whose rights could be adversely affected request in writing that such matters are matters to be discussed at a public meeting. More specifically, we will be going into executive session tonight for personnel and the annual superintendent evaluation. Whereas the length of the executive session is undetermined, the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education will make every attempt to estimate the time of session prior to convening, after which the public shall reconvene at, I'm going to say 8:30 p.m., just an estimate. And the Runnemede School District Board of Education will proceed with business. I can let you all know that we will not be voting on anything this evening after this executive session. Now therefore be it resolved that the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education will go into executive session for only the above stated reasons. Be it further resolved that the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education hereby declares that its discussion of the aforementioned subjects may be made public at a time when the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education attorney advises that the disclosure of the discussion will not detrimentally affect any right, interest, or duty of the school district or any other entity with respect to said discussion. Be it further resolved that the Runnemede Public School District Board of Education, for the aforementioned reasons, hereby declares that the public is excluded from the portion of the meeting during which the above discussion shall take place, and hereby directs the board secretary to take the appropriate action to effectuate the terms of this resolution. Be it further resolved that the board secretary on the next business day following this meeting shall furnish a copy of this resolution to any member of the public who requests one at the fees allowed by NJSA 47:1A-1. Action will not be taken in open session at the conclusion of this executive session. So we will be moving, so the public doesn't have to move if they wish to stay. But right now, I need a motion and seconds to go into. We made a motion, made a section. All in favor of executive session? Aye. Ayes have it. We will be going into executive up